Imagine this. You are 32 years old. You have spent the last 5 years working in Australia on a temporary visa. You have built a life here. You have a job you love, friends who have become family, and a rental property you've treated like a home. You have been waiting patiently for your chance to apply for permanent residency. You've calculated your points, you've saved your money for the application fees, and you've planned your entire future around staying in this country. Then, one Tuesday morning, you check the news. The government has announced a massive overhaul of the points test and the closure of several visa streams. Suddenly, the goalposts haven't just moved, they've been taken off the field entirely. You realize that under the new rules, you no longer qualify. Your path to PR is blocked. You have 6 months left on your current visa, and for the first time, the permanent in permanent residency feels like an impossible dream. This is not a scenario I'm inventing to scare you. According to recent strategic papers from the Department of Home Affairs and the latest 2026 migration strategy updates, this is the new reality for thousands of migrants in Australia. We are witnessing a fundamental crackdown on the path to permanent residency. Welcome back to Immigration News Today. If you are currently in Australia on a temporary visa, or if you are planning to migrate in 2026 with the hope of staying forever, you need to stop and watch this video before you spend another dollar on a visa agent or an English test. I am not exaggerating when I say that the changes we are about to cover represent the most significant shift in Australian immigration policy in over a decade. We are moving away from a system that allowed permanently temporary stays and toward a highly selective, high-stakes environment where only the most economically valuable migrants will find a path to PR. Today, I am going to walk you through the 5 most critical rule changes that could block your permanent residency in 2026. Every fact I share comes directly from official sources: the Department of Home Affairs, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and the latest legislative instruments from the 2026 to 2027 migration program year. No opinions, no internet rumors. And before we go any further, stay until rule change number 5, because I am going to reveal a hidden age and income trap that is quietly disqualifying skilled workers who thought they were safe. Most migrants have no idea this specific barrier exists until it's too late. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where you stand. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was 34 years old, a skilled marketing professional from the UK. She had been in Melbourne for 4 years on a subclass 482 visa. She was a hard worker, paid her taxes, and was a pillar of her local community. She had been waiting for her employer to nominate her for a subclass 186 visa, the direct path to PR. She figured as long as she kept her job and followed the rules, the transition would be automatic. But Sarah didn't realize that in early 2026, the government introduced a core skills requirement that removed her specific niche of marketing from the priority list for permanent sponsorship. When her employer went to lodge the nomination, they were told that her role no longer qualified for a permanent pathway under the new 2026 occupation standards. Because Sarah hadn't looked at the new rules until her current visa was expiring, she had no time to pivot to a different visa or move to a regional area. She was forced to leave Australia, leaving behind the life she had spent nearly half a decade building. Every single piece of that nightmare could have been prevented if Sarah had understood the shifting landscape of 2026. Let me show you what the new rules are. The first major hurdle, and perhaps the most significant for anyone under 45, is the 2026 points test overhaul. This is the single most important mechanism for the subclass 189, 190, and 491 visas. For years, the points test remained relatively predictable. You got points for your age, your English, and your degree. But as of 2026, the Department of Home Affairs has implemented a productivity-based points system. This means the government is no longer just looking at whether you have a degree. They are looking at the specific economic value of that degree in the current Australian market. Under the new rules, generalist points are being slashed. For example, the points previously awarded for simply having a bachelor's degree have been reduced if that degree is not in a sovereign capability sector, like healthcare, education, or renewable energy. Furthermore, the points for professional year programs, which many international students relied on to hit the magic 65 or 70 point mark, are being phased out in favor of work experience in Australia points. Here is the trap most migrants fall into. Many people believe that as long as they hit 65 points, they are eligible. While 65 remains the technical minimum, the 2026 reality is that for most non-healthcare occupations, the invitation ceiling has risen to 95 or even 100 points. The department is now using a tiered invitation system. If you are in a Priority 1 occupation, like nursing or secondary teaching, you might get an invite with 75 points. But if you are an accountant, a civil engineer, or an IT specialist, you are competing in a pool where the average applicant now has 95 points due to the new partner skills bonus and regional study increments. The Department of Home Affairs is very clear. Meeting the minimum points does not guarantee an invitation. Without a plan to maximize your points under the 2026 criteria, specifically by looking at high-level English scores or moving to a regional area, your EOI, expression of interest, could sit in the system until it expires, effectively blocking your path to PR. The second major change involves the new core skills and specialist skills pathways that have replaced the old 482 streams. In 2026, the government has moved away from the short-term and medium-term lists and replaced them with 3 distinct tiers. This is where many migrants are getting blocked. Tier 1 is the specialist skills pathway for those earning over $135,000 a year. This is a fast track to PR. Tier 2 is the core skills pathway, which covers the majority of skilled workers. But here is the catch. The list of occupations for the core skills pathway is being updated every 6 months based on real-time labor market data from Jobs and Skills Australia. If your occupation is removed from the core skills list while you are on a temporary visa, your transition to PR pathway under the subclass 186 visa may vanish. According to the 2026 migration strategy, the government is focusing on dynamic list management. In the past, lists stayed the same for years. Now, they are responsive. If the data shows an oversupply of graphic designers or HR managers in June, those roles can be restricted from permanent sponsorship by December. This creates a tangled visa status for workers who are midway through their journey. If you are on a temporary work visa, you can no longer assume your occupation is a forever ticket to PR. You must check the Jobs and Skills Australia priority lists quarterly. If you see your occupation moving from shortage to balanced, that is your signal that the door to PR is closing, and you need to act immediately to lodge your nomination or find an alternative pathway. The third change is one that most migrants have never heard of, but it is the most powerful tool the government has to control the PR intake: the mandatory regional requirement. As of 2026, the government has shifted the planning levels for the migration program to favor regional visas, subclass 491 and 191, over metropolitan visas, subclass 190. In many states like New South Wales and Victoria, the quota for the 190 visa, which allows you to live in Sydney or Melbourne, has been cut by up to 40%. Meanwhile, the 491 regional visa quotas have been increased. This is a deliberate PR crackdown on major cities. The government's message is simple. If you want permanent residency, you must go to the regions. But here is the 2026 trap. The definition of regional has been tightened. Furthermore, the path to PR via the 491 visa has become more rigorous. You are now required to show not just that you lived in a regional area for 3 years, but that you were actively employed in your nominated occupation or a related field for a significant portion of that time. The Australian Taxation Office, ATO, is now sharing data directly with Home Affairs to verify that 491 holders are actually living and working where they say they are. If you try to game the system by living in a city while claiming a regional address, the 2026 data matching systems will catch you. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau equivalents in Australia have noted that visa fraud related to regional residency is a top priority for 2026 enforcement. If you are serious about PR in 2026, you need to seriously consider moving out of the big cities. The city PR door is not just narrowing, it is being locked for everyone except the absolute top tier of earners and healthcare professionals. Rule number 4 protects the integrity of the Australian labour market, but it places a massive burden on migrants. This is the revised English and age threshold. For years, the age limit for PR has been 45. In 2026, while the limit technically remains 45 for most streams, the points awarded for age have been drastically front-loaded. Under the new 2026 points test, the points for being aged 33 to 39 have been reduced, while the points for being aged 25 to 32 have been increased. This is part of the younger migrant strategy, designed to ensure that new PR holders contribute to the tax base for decades. If you are approaching 40, your points floor is dropping every year, making it harder and harder to compete with younger applicants. At the same time, the English language requirements have reached an all-time high. In 2026, competent English, IELTS 6, is no longer enough to get you an invitation in any competitive field. You now effectively need superior English, IELTS 8 or PTE 79+, just to stay in the race. The Department of Home Affairs makes this very clear. The higher the demand for a visa, the higher the effective English requirement becomes. Many migrants believe that because they have an Australian degree, they are exempt or safe. They are not. If you are 40 years old and you only have proficient English, IELTS 7, you are statistically unlikely to receive a PR invitation in 2026 in a non-priority field. You need to maximize your English scores now before you hit the next age bracket and lose more points. Rule number 5 is the one that contains the hidden income and tax trap I promised you. This involves the TSMIT, Temporary Skilled Migration Income Threshold, and its link to the subclass 186 PR visa. As of 2026, the TSMIT has been indexed to $76,500. This means that if you are on a sponsored visa, you must be earning at least this much to even be considered skilled. But here is the crackdown. The government has introduced a consistency audit. When you apply for permanent residency via the 186 transition stream, the department now reviews your entire history of tax returns, notice of assessments, for the duration of your temporary visa. If they find that in 2024 or 2025, your employer underpaid you, or you took unpaid leave that brought your annual income below the TSMIT threshold for that year, they are now using that as grounds to refuse the PR application. In the past, they might have looked the other way if it was a small discrepancy. In 2026, with the new migration amendment measures, there is zero tolerance. This is a massive trap for migrants who worked for small businesses or startups that may have struggled during the previous years. If your pay slips don't perfectly match the TSMIT requirements for every single year you were on a sponsored visa, your path to PR could be blocked. This information comes directly from the 2026 Employer Sanctions Guidelines. Please, audit your own payroll records and tax returns today. If you see a discrepancy, you must consult a migration lawyer to see if it can be rectified before you lodge your PR application. You now know the 5 ways the 2026 crackdown could block your permanent residency. But knowledge without action changes nothing. Here are 3 concrete steps I want you to take this week. Not next month, not someday, this week. Step 1. Perform a 2026 points audit. Don't use an old calculator from 2023. Look at the latest 2026 criteria. Are you relying on points that are being phased out? Are you losing points for age faster than you are gaining them for experience? If your score is under 85 and you aren't in healthcare, you need a new strategy. Step 2. Check the Jobs and Skills Australia priority list. See exactly where your occupation sits. Is it in shortage, balanced, or oversupply? If it's not in shortage, your employer-sponsored PR path is at risk. Step 3. Verify your income consistency. Log into your MyGov account, go to the ATO section, and pull your notice of assessments for the last 3 years. Ensure every single year shows an income above the TSMIT of that time. If you find a gap, address it now. What I shared with you today could be the difference between staying in Australia and being forced to pack your bags. The government is not going to send you a personalized warning that the rules are changing for you. That is exactly why I created this channel, to give you verified, real-time alerts on the Australian PR crackdown. Click the link in the description right now to subscribe to our newsletter and share this video with every migrant you know. Because the 2026 rules do not help you after your visa expires. They only work if you understand them while you still have time to act. Thank you for watching Immigration News Today. Travel smart, stay informed, and we will see you in the next update.